Okay, we're going to be doing turtle heads in pencil. This is just a few views of freshwater turtle heads that I drew out for you guys to kind of practice on. This is more like a 3/4 view, and this is a side view, and then below that I actually have a front view, which I'll have to do another shot of, but I will get to it. But anyway, this is just pencil. And this is your general freshwater turtle. This is how to do their head. And generally it's kind of an elbow shape here. And what you're going to do is you just start with like an elbow type line. Very blunt. Go down a little bit like that. And their noses are pretty blunt in general. And you just go under there for the chin. And leave it a little bit skinny towards the neck area. And then they sort of have a little bit of a smile to their mouth. And you can draw part of the beak is actually kind of visible. There's a little, it's almost like a fingernail type thing if you look up close to them. This may or may not show up in other species, but in general, this is just what I'm doing for this one. And there's the nostril. And for the eye, this is almost like an eye socket right here, because this holds the whole eyelid area and I guess some of the muscles that they use to move the eye. So it's almost like you're drawing the socket. So you do that, almost like a fisheye in a way. And then you go in there, smaller circle. And there might actually be a smaller eyelid. You can put another line right there. And then the eye itself with the pupil and iris are in here. You just do a pupil there. And then with a lot of freshwater turtles, the very common ones, they have a bar going across the iris. There are some species like map turtles, some of which do not have this trait in their eyes, but in general, there are a great deal of freshwater turtles that do have this. So that's just one thing you're going to notice. And then the second thing, or rather the fourth thing here, you're going to do this little area here. This is actually called a tympanic scale. It's basically what they have in lieu of an ear. I'm not sure how well they can hear, but I know that they do hear and feel vibrations. So that does, it's kind of the same thing that toads and frogs have, if you look at them. And then this is the sheath of skin, the extra little skin that they have when they tuck their head back into the shell. And this skin actually down below the frontal head area is going to be a little more textured, a little more rough. So you can do a little more lines down there. And then just add a little bit of cross hatching. If you're just doing a simple drawing, you can do that, or you can add some of the scaling that they have. Again, pretty rough texture. And most of the texture on the head, though, is going to be fairly smooth. There are some lines there, but in general, most of that texture is going to be kind of unseen because of the colors that they do have. You will notice some more of the texture underneath the chin area, so you can add a little bit there for shadow. And then that's how you do a profile of a turtle head. So that's that. And we will move on to doing the 3/4 version, something like that. I'm not sure exactly what fractional view this is, but it's a nice one and I thought I'd offer it. So with this, you kind of want to start from the back of the head here, this area, and almost do almost like a teardrop shape with just a little hint of a ducktail. And do the little area for the chin and the upper mandible to meet. Just a little kind of indent there. Go down for this circular kind of jaw, and then tuck under for the neck. And then you'll go back here, add a little more definition to the neck there. That's going to be your rough skin area here. And then do some nostrils. And then that other eye on this side is actually going to poke out a bit. Their eyes are a little bit froggy, so they do poke out. And then for the other eye, you're going to go down maybe an inch down the nose area and do a little hump for the little eye. And then you're going to round that out just like you did with the head up here, like it's a socket. And put in the smaller eye. Well, not the smaller eye, it is just the iris portion and pupil. And then do a smaller eyelid down here. Fill in your pupil, add the bar, erase the line from the top of the head there, and then we'll get to the beak. Oh, wait a minute, finish this eye up here. I'm going to just add the pupil here because you barely see parts of it, so just add a little bit of that. Okay, now you can do the beak. And you see part of the other side of the beak here. And there's a point to their mouth. So you'll do that. Almost like a little dog or cat mouth. They have that little point that goes up right before the nose. And then you'll add that little line area for the beak. Do that. And you'll go and you'll add the tympanic scale again, just about an inch out from the end of the mouth. And then you'll start adding a little more definition to the neck muscle area and the folds of skin. And under the chin here, you have a little more definition on the bottom of the beak area. Well, it's not the beak, but rather the mandible, that bone area. You'll see how the skin sort of tucks under there, and there's a little bit of a shadow underneath their chin. And then for some of the scaling, you can actually, to do something really easy for yourself, is just sort of do like that. And you don't have to make them perfect rows, but it's just a good way to get in some texture and shadow at the same time. And then the skin area, that little line of the skin sheath here is just like that. Well, I wouldn't make it too defined down here because it doesn't seem like there is too many lines on that, on the lower chin area. Come off. All right. And there's a lot of cross hatching with the lines that are in the textures in the neck. We can do a little bit up here. Again, the skin in this general area is going to be very smooth. There are some lines, but for the most part, in artwork, you're going to be filling a lot of that area with color. If you do want to leave those lines visible, I would suggest making a point not to fill them in and drawing them out and making sure that the shadows lay right on them. I don't typically do them too often unless I'm doing a really, really large image of one of them. Because most of my images are kind of small, I usually just fill it with color and you don't notice those lines as much in my images. But yeah, in general, just finished up the texture here. But yeah, for a much larger resolution image, I would definitely suggest doing those lines and, you know, making it a point to see how they lay down shadows and lights in terms of getting that texture right if you really want to do something hyper realistic and hyper close up. Now down here I did another view of a turtle head, and that's the one where they're looking up at you. And I'm going to do this one real fast too, just because I don't want to skip over it. I cut off the neck a little bit here, which was kind of premature, but oh well, we'll do the whole thing here. Now with this guy, with this particular view, you'll just start with the nose, a little blunt nose. And what you'll do, again, using a teardrop shape, kind of a fat teardrop, you'll get the general gist of the head there, the head shape. And then you can kind of taper it down to where the neck area is. And then you'll do the little areas for the eyeball. And you can start by just doing just the little circles, because you'll kind of taper them in to do the eyelid area and everything. And there is some skin in that area. That's why I drew this extra bit here, but you don't really have to unless it's really close up to the turtle and he has his head tucked in. Most of the time they stick their heads up so high you don't even see it. So you can erase this line here. And again, what you're going to do is the same thing you did with these upper versions here. You're going to draw like you're drawing the eye socket. And then go ahead and do the little smile, a little turtle smile that they have. And try to line it up with the center of the nose. I know that might be hard at first, but try to get it as close as you can, because generally that's part of their symmetry. But anyway, and then their chin, this is part of the mandible, does not have any scales on it, this area. But there are scales underneath the chin there. So, but anyway. And you can just do the little line of the beak area. And you can kind of see this, a little bit of the shadow where the beak melds into the rest of the skin on the head. And then you'll do nostrils. And then erase these lines. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go in, make a little sort of eyelid there, and draw the smaller circle for your iris and pupil to fit in. And then draw a little bit more of the lid, little line there underneath here. And then your pupil, bars. And do the same thing with this one. just fill in the pupils and the bars. And there's a little bit of shading around the pupil on the lighter part of this eye. You usually only see this when you're real close up to a turtle's face, like in a photo or something. And you leave a little bit of that white area right on the rim of the pupil. A lot of reptiles have that feature to their eyes. Bearded dragons have the same. I actually just did that recently. Do that. And make sure you've got all your lines cleaned up. And then you can erase any of the leftover stuff that you went over to correct what you were drawing. And there's some there. And then you can start adding a little bit of shadow underneath the chin. Not too much, because it all kinds of, they have such a smooth aerodynamic shape to their heads. You don't want to overdo it. And there's a few lines down here. And then you just kind of go happy with the scales texture. Now again, if you really want to go full accurate or full detail on these guys, the roughness of the texture of the skin, whether it be in this area of the head or the lower neck, get really high definition photos. You'll see everything that they have. And it's a lot of work, but once you complete something like that, I'm sure you'll be very proud of it. It does take a lot of work, but it's a very nice look when you do have something that's a large image and you have all of that detail in. So those are your general turtle heads. Again, you know, it all depends on species, how the different features are going to line up, but in general, that's your average freshwater turtle. This head's actually a little skinnier, but they vary between individuals, so that's okay. I'll get on to doing the legs and the tails next.